Hello, and welcome to the Heller Approach Acting Studio. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to answer some of the questions that you guys put in the comments. So I'm just going to read off a question here. While I prepare, I realize that I am not able to portray the character because my skill level just isn't advanced enough to be able to portray that character. So I emailed the casting director to say that I am no longer able to audition because I don't feel able to portray the character. My question is, will casting directors see me as flaky? Absolutely. You know, it's so much work for agents and managers to pitch and get you into the room, and casting directors also. I mean, there's thousands of actors for one role. It's possible that maybe you're questioning your ability when you don't necessarily need to, especially if you have, whether it be me or some other acting coach, you know, you need to work on your craft. It's a muscle. If it were me, what I would be doing, I would be studying and I'd be training and see a coach. Come here at our school. I mean, you know, we have people who are relatively new, who are auditioning for very complex roles, and I can get you, you know, to a place pretty quickly. You'd be surprised. Something extremely complex, like maybe you don't have any knowledge with regards to like dialects or like playing an accent or Shakespeare. Like those are some, you know, things that I would say. But if it's like a very emotional character, you know, maybe somebody who's dealing with a fear or really nervous, or, you know, so that when these roles come up, you're ready. I would say that you really need to get into class and train immediately, whether it be us or another school. Of course, I'm biased because I think we're the best in the world, but hey, that's me. So, anyway, thank you so much for your comment, and I hope that helps. What do you suggest doing when there is more than one emotion in a scene that changes over the course of the dialogue? Do we try to find the overarching emotion? I think you're saying basically, is there emotion that might cover all of it? But the reality is, no. You do need to change your emotions sometimes. Don Richardson used to say, you know, if you have new information or a new event, it can change the emotion. If I'm walking down the street in a really good mood and I'm feeling a sense of joy, and suddenly some person in a car hits me, like I can't be in joy anymore. Obviously the scene, I'm terrified, right? So what I would suggest you do is do the breathing exercise, do the parallel for the first part of the scene when you're supposedly happy walking down the street whistling. And then when you get to that new section, use a different parallel and drop in the emotion that you're feeling there, and do the breathing from that point forward with the new emotion of anxiety, fear, or terror. And then I've trained my body. Remember, the technique is built on muscle memory. So I've trained my body to make that change by doing the breathing, stopping it with that particular emotion, and doing it, you know, continuing on with the new emotion. You know, you want to remember, I still don't think a lot of teachers or coaches stress this enough, that acting is a two-step process. That's why I think it's so important when I teach people who are athletes or musicians or dancers. They take to the technique so fast because they understand the concept. In music, I learn the notes and then I just play the song. In dance, you learn the steps and then you just dance. It's the same thing with acting. You do the breathing exercises, you do your scene interpretation, you do your parallels. That's like learning the notes, right? When it comes time to shoot, you just react off your scene partner and play off of them and see what happens. I hope that, you know, gives you some clarity, because you first train your body and then you just play the scene. Hope that helps. What if saying the word doesn't make me feel any emotion like that? So that's a great question. I remember being in Don Richardson's class, and if you're not aware, he wrote a wonderful book. That's one of my main mentors. You know, I was in his class and I asked him, like, what happens if I don't feel it when I say the name of the emotion? As I recall, it's been decades since I worked with him directly, but as I recall, it didn't seem to concern him that much, because, you know, if I'm playing an emotion and I'm very, very emotional, whatever the emotion, there are certain physiological things that happen in your body. You get lightheaded, your heart rate goes up, your pulse goes up. So even if you were doing the breathing exercise that I've taught you, and only that, and you had, you know, that quality of being a little bit lightheaded from breathing heavy, and you start the scene and you're charged, I would imagine it's probably going to be pretty successful anyway, because most people will make their own assumption about what you're actually feeling. I would say two more things on that topic. One, I do teach some people who may not be as familiar with certain words, like bewilderment is a good one, especially when I'm teaching younger people, like at our school, and I may say, listen, this character's filled with bewilderment, and they're not going to have any idea what that means. They say it doesn't mean anything. So I ask them to think of a word, and I kind of go, all right, well, what word would make you, how do you describe a sense of being lost or confused? And they may just say the word lost instead of bewilderment. I personally think if you can find a really strong word that sort of means the same thing and it connects with you, don't be afraid to use it as long as you're doing the breathing. Lastly, I talk a lot about parallels, where you kind of think about something that's happened, in your own life to relate to, so you can kind of go, okay, this is kind of the same situation. For example, let's say I'm playing a character who's really scared. Maybe he's held at gunpoint or something. But I might go, well, where have I been terrified? Or scared. So I don't necessarily think of a word. I just kind of go, where did I feel something like that? So I think about a car accident I got in when somebody hit me on the freeway from behind. And it was scary, and you're like alarmed, confused, you don't know what's going on, right? And I would say that was sort of a sense of fear or terror or anxiety when I first got hit. So if I describe the emotion of the parallel, it tends to get me on the right track with picking a word to describe the actual emotion I'm feeling. So I give you